All right, everyone, it's a very, very proud day for me because the Petit Albert, the edition that I've worked on, is now fully available. That is the hardcover, deluxe leather, and vellum sort of marbled slipcover editions are all now fully available. I have mine here. I'm going to show you some and just detail a little bit about what's in the Petit Albert for those who may be new to the channel, you don't quite know yet. It is a folkish grimoire, that is a book of spells and magic and sorcery and other things. It is a compilation of different folk traditions from France back many centuries ago. It's an interesting work. It also contains one of the most infamous instances of black magic that is known to mankind. One of the most common tropes is the Hand of Glory. This is the hand of a thief, usually, or just a severed hand, depending on who you ask, that's been preserved in certain ways, is sort of anointed, fitted with a candle. And depending on who you ask, it either makes the user invisible, allowing them to be a thief at their leisure, or it simply it gives light only to them. That way the thief can be in total darkness when they're operating. They can see what's going on around them. Other people aren't getting the benefit of that light. Really kind of depends, and there are various little poems and stuff associated with that. But the most common treatment of the Hand of Glory is in the Little Albert, the Petit Albert. This particular work it's a full-length grimoire. It's actually quite a bit longer than many others. The Grand Grimoire, I believe, if I remember correctly, is around 70 pages. The Grimorium Verum a little bit longer. The Petit Albert is significantly more lengthy. It contains a large number of shorter spells, talismans. It contains some references to alchemy in the more physical and literal sense. And really, it's more easy to understand in some ways. Some of the spells and rituals here that I wouldn't recommend you practice, by the way. Some of them could be dangerous. Some of them are a little bit out there. They're a little bit like weird. What the hell am I reading, essentially? But it's more easily understood than some of the more complicated magical systems through time that literally were written for a more literate crowd. This is a folkish grimoire. So I'm going to show you the three editions now. You can see sort of what you're getting. Link in the description, of course, to Ouroboros Press, where you can acquire these works. So this is the base edition. Simple, paper slip cover. Cover over the hardcover edition. We'll go through and look at some of the rather out there content. Now, some of this we wouldn't class as magic today, but the rudimentary peasants of yesteryear would have considered it to be sort of a spiritual thing. For instance, making vinegar, making liquor, making certain types of wines, and other alcoholic compounds, herbal healing. Certainly the last segment of the work is a long collection of different diseases, how to cure them in a more or less folklorish manner. Healing a husky throat, and you have a clogged throat, here's how you heal it with barley and some of these other ingredients. Some of these probably work better than others. Some of them are pure superstition, some of them are simply folk remedies. It's like what you would find in the physics of the 1800s, or what you would find in some of these little handbooks that were circulating around, sold by salesmen even as late as the late atomic period. You can still find them today. You'll find works on, the healing power of garlic, the healing power of turmeric, the wondrous advantages of chamomile, something like that. It's very much similar, it's just antiquated in its form. To determine whether a patient shall live or die, essentially monitoring a patient. This is also a common feature in other grimoires from this period, and also thereafter. I believe there's a passage in it in the Book of Forbidden Knowledge, actually, if I remember correctly. There are things in here about softening ivory, melting steel bars, or iron bars it would have been at the time, creating imitation pearls, using borax to melt gold, all sorts of strange things. There are certainly things in here related to divination, fortune-telling in a general sense. Essentially, it was meant to have a utilitarian purpose for the lower classes. As opposed to some grimoires, they talk about angels and demons, and here's this very elaborate month-long summoning ritual. It must be done under a certain moon phase, it must end under a certain moon phase, and you need golden plates with these seals on them. That's kind of absent mostly from this work. Some of the talismanic works in here require what you would consider some substantial cost. Everything else is rather simple. It goes into a warning about fake mandrakes. It also covers, here's an interesting part, salamanders, gnomes, nymphs, and sylphs, sort of these elemental cryptids, and actually contains an oration of the salamanders to sort of summon these beings, and speaks about, the nature, the elemental nature of fire and earth and so forth, speaks about sort of caving and mining, rituals related to those, and it's also, strangely enough, it's a cosmopolitan grimoire. That is, that this is one of the first works that draws heavily from other cultures outside of its area of manufacture. It is a French work, now of course worked into English, but it takes Nordic lore, Germanic lore, Hungarian lore, and some of these other things, and rolls it together all into that same folkishness. It's a peasant grimoire for people that were, I suppose, merchants bringing back some of these folk tales. They were compiled into this work. It's one of the best works of dark occultism, and it is mostly dark, ever created. I like to think that the Red Book of Appin, by the way, which you probably, if you know anything about the occult, have heard of, it's sort of a legendary grimoire, is loosely based on the Petit Albert. The veterinary and folk healing side of that is nowhere else more prevalent than it is within this text. It's a very good work, otherwise I wouldn't have bothered processing it in the way that I did. This is the Deluxe Leather Edition, which, by the way, looks absolutely spectacular, so definitely a shout out to the publisher. It looks really good. High quality paper, everything else, bound in fine leather. You can definitely smell that it's actual cowhide as opposed to something that's fake. Again, it's basically the same work, but this is fine binding, and of course such editions are more collectible. There is also the Deluxe Edition, which comes with a fine marbled slipcover, which is quite nice, on the finest vellum. And this one's printed in white, as opposed to the Deluxe Leather, which is printed in black. They're fundamentally the same work, except, other than the binding material, of course, this has certain illustrations that are fold out, as you can see. I'm not going to fold it out, actually, because I don't want to damage it. This is going to be my own personal copy that I save in my own collection. I do owe this leather edition to someone already. And I have, and I'll work on this in the coming days, I think, honestly. I do have some of the base hardcover editions that I will be giving out to people, but I want to make it part of a subscriber challenge or something along those lines. I will, of course, sign them and pay for shipping. I've got to figure out exactly what I want to do on that token. Maybe make a degrade the legacy media in 3 minutes or less challenge or something like that. We'll see what happens. I haven't fully decided on that yet, but I am extremely happy with the work. This particular publisher, Ouroboros Press, has done a fantastic job on it. I'll definitely work with them again if I have something to work with them on. And it's just pleased all around. This is one of my favorite grimoires. This isn't like the Grimorium Verum, some of these other things. Yeah, I'm interested in them. I'm interested in any occult work I encounter. Some are better than others. I love the folkish side. I love the folklore. I love the herbal sort of content, sort of the veterinary, general medical content, and even a little bit of the social commentary that goes along with it. That's all of great interest to me. I know some people, I can take it or leave it. Okay, I like that side of the grimoires. More so than the high ritual sort of grand poobah stuff, where people are just making incantations to some angel or demon or something like that. Those can be of interest, but they're an entirely separate class of works. Here you're getting more of the physical, more of the rudimentary. You're seeing a look into the things that were found important by the peasantry, essentially, at that time, taken from a half dozen different cultures. For that reason alone, I would class this as the greatest of grimoires. Greater than the Grand Grimoire, greater than the Grimorium Verum, greater than the Ars Notoria and any of these other often compiled works, the lesser keys sort of material. The sort of Solomonic grimoires, in my opinion, pale in comparison to the French cycle. That is of the greatest interest, honestly, to me. And in the future, I do intend to work with the the Grand Albert, which is sort of a rough counterpart to the Petit Albert, which is more of a handbook that people would carry around and use for various purposes. Again, link in the description. All 3 editions are available. I believe that wholesale groups that intend to buy in bulk are now opened up to be able to do so. Again, as before, I don't know how long the copies of any of these 3 categories will actually remain. So if you intend to grab a copy, you don't have to put it on reserve at this point. You can just buy it. It'll be shipped out to you in a proper manner, and you can go with it that way. Definitely collectible. It's limited edition. There are only so many that have been made, printed up, and again, one of the few modern releases of the Petit Albert that actually does it justice to the work. I've seen and read other editions, so-called, of the same, and I won't name names, but I'm not a fan of them. I think they're a little bit hyperbolic when it comes to some of the claims made with regards to this specific work. It needed a modern edition. All of these other famous, the Picatrix, or the works of Saint Germain, they're so-called, they've been given proper modern editions. The Petit Albert was notorious in not having one. The Grand Albert would be the other. I can work through that. It'll take probably a little bit longer, but I'm going to try. I'm going to make every effort to actually do that before the end of the year. That's about all. Peace out.